Welcome back to the second hour of the Power Breakfast Show live on Citizen TV. My name is Wahiga Mwaura. We are now 20 days and counting to the August 8th polls, and of course many people are asking questions about election preparedness. How ready are we? How ready are our institutions to handle what many expect to be an election like no other for many reasons? And just to help me discuss that, I have an expert panel in studio to take us through some of the issues affecting the upcoming polls. On my right, Brian Mutie, governance expert. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
On my immediate left, I am joined by Roslyn Akombe, Commissioner, IEBC. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And on my far left, Vimal Shah, Chairman, Kenya Daima. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a look at a press conference that actually took place yesterday, and this is what happened or came out of that. And the Communications Authority at that press conference has warned media and other bodies against tallying and announcing their own results. The Communications Authority boss Francis Wangusi says only the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has the prerogative to tally and make public next month's results. Dennis Otieno has those details.
With only 3 weeks to go to the August 8th general election, the Communications Authority now says the media will not be allowed to relay their own tally of the results to their audience. According to the authority's Director General Francis Wangusi, the media will only be allowed to announce results declared by IEBC.
I know some media houses have been engaging into dialogue about making their own tally centers and releasing their own results. I hope that your results will be released after the IEBC has released its official results.
Speaking at a Kenya Private Sector Alliance meeting with various government agencies, Wangusi claimed announcing results tallied by any other organization or group would precipitate chaos in the country. Already, a number of local media houses have made private plans to collect, aggregate and relay the results as provisional outcome of the various elective posts up for grabs. The opposition alliance NASA has also indicated that it will set up its own parallel tallying center to guard against possible vote rigging in the elections. The authority has, however, indicated that it will not shut the internet during the election period. The communication sector industry regulator is also warning Kenyans that it was on the lookout for hate mongers ahead of the polls.
So we are watching the platforms, we are alert, we are on 24/7, and we have enough tools, particularly on social media platforms.
Every single Kenyan has a duty and a right to remain peaceful.
Speaking at the same event, Acting Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i and Chief Justice David Maraga said the country was ready for the polls.
The security sector has done a risk assessment across the country so that we are able to prepare effectively to provide our expected facilitation to the IEBC to be able to hold or conduct free and fair elections.
I want to assure the nation that all arrangements have been made to deal with electoral disputes that may come, including any acts of crime.
We're going to say if you lose, go to court. If you win, fine, celebrate, nothing wrong. And in that manner, we want to make sure that there's credibility across. Meanwhile, in Eldoret, a 26-year-old man was charged in court for allegedly posting hate messages on his Facebook account. Meshak Kipchirchir Korir is accused of posting words which appear to have been targeting members of one ethnic community. He denied the charges before Chief Magistrate Charles Obulutsa and was released on a 100,000 shilling bond. The case will be heard on 1st of August. Dennis Otieno, Citizen TV.
Well, those are some of the issues that were discussed yesterday at a forum convened by Kenya Daima. Kenya Daima is a place where civil society, faith-based organizations, private sector, NCIC, university students and others have come together under that one forum chaired by Vimal Shah to look at how they can contribute to an election that is in 20 days. Now, just to help us take a look briefly at some of the issues that were discussed yesterday at that particular forum, I'll ask Vimal just to explain to us a little bit about what happened. You've seen some of the issues that came out of that, but I know there was a lot more, and I can allow you now just to elaborate a little bit.
Thanks a lot. I think it's important for people to know that our objective was to bring everybody together. As a partnership right now with ourselves, and you discussed it, so faith-based organizations, civil society, university student leaders, and we want to make everybody champions. We wanted to make sure that all the bodies that are now housed with or have the authority and the responsibility for running the elections are ready, number one. Number two, are credible, and they've got their processes that are really in there. So if there's anything that's lacking, we would actually be able to say, how do we all help to make it more credible? So we had the Chief Justice there, and they said the courts are ready in case of anything. They've got their preparedness there. We went with IEBC, and IEBC confirmed we're ready. There's nothing to worry about. The third thing was the security forces. They were ready to say, if anything that does go wrong, we're already there, because, you know, we don't want violence, and nobody wants violence. And why should there be even one death, one life being lost? What is the price of a life? It's priceless. You can't price it. And therefore we said, this preparedness is important. And all the agencies housed with it, faith-based organizations, ourselves, private sector, so that we actually calm people down to say, hey, it's just another election. Number one. Number two, vote. Do go out and vote. Preparedness is there. And forget all these doubting Thomases. We wanted to get that clear so that everybody is very clear, and then broadcast that to the nation to say there is enough preparedness for all the authorities. What our duty now is to trust them, back them up, because we have no other choice. Number two, I think the issue again with the Communications Authority was to bring them on board to say there should be no breakdowns, right? There should be systems working. However, the hate speech, the fake news, there's a lot of that happening, should be curbed, because that's dangerous, and that's can spell a lot of doom. So we got them to confirm that too, and therefore all the agencies, including the CS4, the acting CS, was also there to say the whole preparedness is there. Why we wanted this? Because 21 days was yesterday, today is 20 days.
Yes.
And every day is ticking. The important thing is to let everybody know that there is enough preparedness, trust the organizations, let's back them up, and let's go out and vote. It is not electronic voting. There's electronic systems, which I think IEBC can confirm, but the rest is all manual papers. You got to put in your vote and then cast it out there. Okay. And then the counting and all that stuff happens. However, I think the important thing was that results should not be announced by various people. You can monitor the results. You can monitor, you can do tallying even online. I think even if it's media, you can do your tallying and all that stuff. But to say this is final, to give finality, that is important that IEBC or some credible organization gives it. Otherwise, I could tweet and say these are the results. Somebody's won with 80,000 votes and somebody with 80 votes, and the results come out the opposite. Now that's it can spell disaster. That's why it was important to set the record straight, hear it from the horse's mouth to say this is what exactly it is, and therefore broadcast that to the nation.
Let me bring Roslyn into this particular discussion. Roslyn, you're sitting here very calm, but I know that in terms of where you've come from at the IEBC and what is going on there, it's a very hectic and busy time for you. Are you able to assure Kenyans that everything is going to be okay, systems are going to be working? And I see you've come with, something that you want just to, briefly display for us.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I think yesterday's forum was very important. I had the privilege of representing Chairman Chibukati at that meeting, and at least for the first time in the last 5 months or 6 months that I've been at the IBC, I was in a forum where people could look at us and say, we have your back. We understand what you're working on, and we support where you're heading. And this is not a small feat, because these are the religious leaders, these are civil society organizations, these are the business leaders in the country, these are university students, student leaders. And so it was important to hear that and to see all the various agencies that are working out there coming and concluding and saying, we are ready. Are you ready? So the question is actually more to the Kenyan people to say, we have all our things ready, we have all our gadgets ready for the election that we'll be using to ensure that we identify you. We even have extra power banks to ensure that we don't run out of electricity or power. So
you can actually power this gadget with a power bank?
Yes, you can power it using a power bank.
Briefly explain how this would work, just for anyone who's not been able to watch previous displays. I know the IBC has come to our studio before.
Yes, we've been in this studio before, and we thank Citizen for that, because you've given us the chance to be able to show this to the Kenyan people. So basically what you'll do on election day is we have a password, a unique password for each presiding officer. So each presiding officer in the 40,883 polling stations will have this gadget, each of them. And each of them has a unique password that will be given to them. And the password comes along with the ballot papers to ensure that it's secure, and nobody opens it, and none of us has it, and none of us in Nairobi will have that password in case people fear. And then what happens is that as a voter comes in, so you come in as a voter, you show your national ID, because that is a requirement in law, or your passport, whichever document you had used. But that is not what will be used to identify you. It's just to verify that you have those documents, because the law requires that you come with them. But what happens is that the clerk will ask you to put your fingerprint here, your finger here. It can be any of the 10 fingers. But what they do before they ask you to do that is that they check your fingers to make sure that, first of all, you have not voted, because we'll still be marking your finger when you have voted. But secondly, to just see where the quality of your fingerprint is much better. And remember, we've taken the fingerprint, all the 10 fingers. So you can use any of them. So if for some reason one of your fingers has an issue, you can pick any of your 10 fingers, and then you'll place your finger. Once you place your finger, the system automatically brings out your picture and all your information. And once you're identified, then you're given the ballot paper and you proceed to go ahead and vote. So when you're looking at the sort of things that we have put in place as a commission, I think we're very confident that we are ready. And I think it was very good in the forum yesterday, Vimal, that we got very reassuring messages from the Communication Authority on transmission, because I think that is one of the headaches we've been having at the Commission, ensuring that the transmission of results is done in a way that does not compromise the integrity of the results, but that we don't see the kind of problems that we saw in 2013. And the Communication Authority assured us yesterday that they have been convening, and they have been working very closely with us, with the 3 mobile telephone providers, to ensure that we have seamless transmission of results. And in places where we don't have the network, then we are going to be using satellite facilities for that.
Okay. Brian, you are the only quote-unquote independent in my panel today, because you don't represent an institution. You're a voter. You've heard what they've said, Vimal and Roslyn. Are you feeling relaxed now, ready for, in the next 20 days that all will go well, or do you still have questions about preparedness?
First of all, let me say my PhD thesis was on stakeholder participation on electoral management in Kenya, and therefore matters of elections are so dear to me, and I can say that I have so much interest when it comes to matters of elections. But today, sitting as you have put it, as a neutral person, as a potential voter, of course, I want to say that personally, as a person, I'm confident that elections will be held just in good time as stipulated in the law. And the most important thing is the assurance that IEBC need to give out to the people. And again, IEBC need to be assured that they have the, that kind of support from stakeholders. And when you talk about stakeholders, of course, we are talking about the executive, legislature, faith-based organizations, citizens themselves, political parties, observers and monitors as well. Those are that's the kind of the support that IEBC would want to have, so that they can feel the pressure is off their shoulders, because they have been operating in a situation where they feel like they have been put in a cage alone, and all the missiles are being hurled onto them. And this is the time that they need to feel that they have some shield that is actually coming to defend them. And that kind of show by the Mzalendo, is it Mzalendo forum?
Kenya Daima.
Kenya Daima. I think it was a good show, and it really gave a lot of confidence. It enhanced that confidence into IEBC's ability to carry out credible, free and fair elections. But again, we also need to understand that Kenyan's politics is a polarized one, and there are a lot of information which is actually circulating within negative and the positive, and it's a matter of actually all the stakeholders. And I'm happy that CA, or Communication Authority, has also come to reassure IEBC that all will be well. The most intriguing thing is the way that Kenyan population have been treating IEBC. They have been treating IEBC as a victim here, while IEBC is operating through a legislative, a legal terrain, which somehow is not really friendly, because every time they want to move a step ahead, they find two. They are taken back two steps behind, because of the legislative and also the legal framework. Of course, democratically, people have the right to express themselves through court of laws and all that in terms of interpretation, but that should not jeopardize IEBC's process, strive to ensure that they give this country credible elections. And I'm afraid that this commission is on record that it has walked through the, harshest terrain ever in the history of this country when it comes to, matters of election preparedness. It's unfortunate. But again, I want to assure IBC, the aura, the environment, the atmosphere is really supportive of IBC, and every person in this country feels that they need to see a credible body doing a credible job for this country.
Okay. Let me briefly play the role of a devil's advocate, and let me pose this to Vimal now. You say that you brought all parties yesterday for that press conference. We've talked about government, civil society, faith-based, private sector. I'm curious why we did not see any members of the opposition there. Because I feel that they also, have a role to play. They will be involved greatly in the August 8th polls and in what will happen after that.
I think there was no issue of opposition or parties. We didn't have Jubilee there, neither did we have CORD, or NASA, or even the Third Way Alliance, and all the others. There were no politicians there. This was not a politicians' vote bank discussion. This was more about preparedness for elections in terms of, are the processes right? Is the system in place? Is there anything that's lacking? And that's why we had a closed-door meeting to say, let us know if there's anything that's lacking so that we can actually bring credibility to it. We're a democratic country. We're the most democratic country in Africa, I would say. But that democratic space is being misused with fake news, with Twitter, with all this social media. And I think a lot of negative news or bad publicity is being given to all the bodies and authorities that are put in place. The real truth about the matter needs to come out. I mean, at the end of this, even with this biometric, you're going to just identify the person. After this, they still get 6 papers, right? And the 6 papers still need to be filled in manually by somebody. So the voting is actually manual. This is just for identification purposes. But when you look at all this, there's so much doubt being casted on this whole process to say, what if it fails? And everybody's looking at not the success, but what if it fails? And I think they've got backups, they've got power banks, they've even got backups for doing all that stuff, but that wasn't going out there. And I think the key issue was to make sure it's not a political rally. Ours was not political, so it's not about opposition or party. We are agnostic, and Mkenya Daima does not stand partisan to anyone.
I like that word that you've used, but again, I'll continue playing this role because unfortunately, anything right now is political. And you know that one of the bodies under Mkenya Daima, KEPSA, held a summit in December. And they invited all political players, but unfortunately one side, that is the opposition, did not come. And they raised various questions. They felt that, and again, I'm not here to talk about KEPSA, but I'm just relating to a potential challenge in the future where some supporters of the opposition could say that when it comes to the ruling party, they were represented, maybe, quote unquote. But I guess my question would be, moving forward, what are the ways in which Mkenya Daima would seek to bring in all the players? Because there's a feeling, and I looked at social media, which I know has a lot of hate speech and fake news, but some still feel that a narrative is being pushed for peace over credible elections. How would you respond to those who have that opinion?
I think it's an exciting space to be in Kenya right now. We're so democratic, we're open and liberal about, you can say anything you want and doesn't matter.
And get away with it.
Get away with it because there's no prosecution there. The key issue is it's not a matter of going to court about everything. I think it's a matter of court of public opinion where people are able to discriminate and decipher what is the truth in this. And that credibility is being misused. My point is, if we are, and that was, KEPSA is just one of the foundations of, it's inspired by KEPSA. So KEPSA is a body that deals with anybody in government. So in the past, let me tell you, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, KEPSA was branded as being in CORD. Why? Because they were dealing with the Prime Minister and they were dealing with the government in force. So they were branded that way. This time, when you're dealing with the government in power, they're saying you're with Jubilee. And I think this is something that political parties very often use so that they brand you, and then you start becoming a sycophant and you say, oh, no, I'm not with them, I'm with you. And I think that's something that we will not do. Very important to keep that middle line. It's not an easy line. It's a very fragile line, and that's something that's important. But to brand somebody this way or that way, I think ultimately, in this election, the important thing for all the leaders, in fact, if either of the two principles wins, we will still stand divided as a country. And that's not good for us. Because when you are elected as president, you are a president of a whole country and not of my tribe. The important thing now is to make sure that we all unite. And look, we'll have, by 2030, we'll have 3 more elections. Kenya is going to change for the better anyway. And I think the important thing is about not me and myself. It's about what am I leaving here for my children or my grandchildren. That's got to be the legacy that everybody leaves, to say, how do I want my grandchildren to be? Do I want them to be violent? Do I want them to be better? That's a key issue. So being branded as one or the other, I think is wrong, number one. Number two, when we start talking about credibility, this issue was to make sure that all the credible institutions question them, ask them tough questions. Are you ready or not? And every one of them said, we're ready, we're ready, we're ready.
Okay.
So the question is, like Roslyn said, are Kenyans ready to vote? Let's do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Just wanted to chip in on something that perhaps it's of very much importance as far as matters of national values are concerned. And when it comes to the opposition, most of the time we have always seen the opposition as the aspect that perhaps is not willing to cooperate with the systems of the day. And there was a time that her chairman, of course, our chairman, the IBC chairman Chebukati, alluded to the fact that there was need for a national dialogue. And that, to me, I think still lingers in my mind, because I found it, something in the right direction, in the sense that all stakeholders, all players within the election space need to come together, reflect, and refocus, because there's too much animosity, too much hatred, too much competition, and suspicion. That trust needs to be brought on table, where I'm able to look, a member of the opposition, and a member of the opposition is able to look at me and they say that we all mean well for this country. So a national dialogue platform which brings about all stakeholders and are able to articulate issues, interrogate issues, for the sake of actually ensuring that this country remains together.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay, I'll cut you there because I need to give Roslyn a chance to respond, even as she tells us that as we wait for the ruling from the Court of Appeal, what steps IBC is putting in place. I've seen a big headline in the paper today. I'll give you a chance to tell us whether that is true or not.
I mean, I think Vimal has raised a very important issue on branding and the importance of, as a country, also being able to get to a point where we can say there are institutions that are going to be impartial institutions, whether it's in Kenya Daima, whether it's the IBC, whether it's the judiciary. I mean, it almost feels in this country that one institution has to be owned by one political side or another, which is really unfortunate, where you see people in social media alluding to the judiciary is now biased to this, and the IBC is owned by so and so. It's really unfortunate, because we only have one IBC, we only have one judiciary, we only have one parliament. So we have to respect those institutions. But also, as we say, we call for the respect of those institutions, we have to ensure that we also respect their independence. That when the judiciary, the judiciary is given the room to do its work without any political interference from anybody, and that the IBC is also given the room to do its work without interference from any institution or any political individual. I think that is very important. I mean, on the headlines that you talked about, I mean, obviously the case is still in court on the ballot papers. I think what Chairman Chebukati has assured the Kenyans on many occasions is that the ballot papers will be here in the country. We will have an election on the 8th of August. We will also not only vote for the 5 seats for which we already have the ballot papers, but we will also vote for the president, because we're going to have the ballot papers here. I will obviously not comment on the on leakages that the media is carrying, because we have forums at the IBC for communicating whatever conversations that we have had or whatever meetings that we have. But I really cannot comment on things that people have speculating or picked from whatever they have picked. But the assurance I think that we want to make as a commission is that the ballot papers are going to be procured. We will have ballot papers on time for the presidential election, and you'll hear very soon, very soon, from Chairman Chebukati on this one. Okay. This is a question that I'll give Vimal and Brian a chance to weigh in on. Last year, I'm sure each of you followed the American presidential election. One of the most highly contested, if I'm using the right English to explain that, Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton on one side, the then Republican candidate, now American President Donald Trump, on the other side. But because of independent institutions that were put in place there, we rarely, if at all, had any discussions about violence. We never saw bodies coming together to warn Americans, keep the peace, and that sort of thing. When do you think Kenya will get to a place where we don't need to talk about peace or
violence or let's be together, because even though this really separated Americans, and you can see that there are still various challenges there, systems and institutions continue to run as normal and people go to work after that. When will we get to that as Kenyans?
I think I'll be very clear about this. Let's look at Kenyans. Let's look at every single Kenyan. Every single Kenyan is peace-loving. They want peace. They want a prosperous nation. They want to really have some food on the table. They want a family.
That is true.
And they really love peace. We're not warring. We've been a safe haven for any problem in Uganda, in Rwanda, in Burundi, in Somalia, in Sudan, and this is a safe haven. And they all come back to a safe island called Kenya, and therefore everything works well. So at the core, every Kenyan is peace-loving. Now, what happens during election time is we get incited. And I think it's basically all our people, 14,500 candidates standing up for elections. And I think that's where it starts saying, okay, let me discriminate between these guys and these guys, and let me try and divide and rule. And that's where the hate speech starts from. That hate speech, incitement, or making sure that the referee is non-credible. Now, when you start doing that, when you go for a football match, do you worry about, let's say, Argentina playing with, Germany, and you start saying, no, the referee is not right. I don't want the referee. I want a new referee. It's been discussed, right? The scorecard is not even discussed. It's let's play. It's the same thing here. So the politicians are doing their job. I think they know how to divide people. They know how to rule people. They know how to make people non-credible or credible or whatever. Let them do their job. The key question we are asking and saying, ni wajibu wetu, sio haki yetu, for every mwananchi to stand up there as Kenyans and say, we will not allow ourselves to be used. I will make sure that win or lose, I will stand there as Mkenya Daima and say, I'm a champion. I'm not going to allow this, number one. Number two, unless we arouse this spirit in every single Kenyan, we will remain in this whole issue around election violence. The violence, this thing that comes up is the backdrop of 2000, 2008, 2007, 2008. And that post-election violence created a lot of fracas. Do we want to go there? No single Kenyan wants to go there. However, our leaders, some of them, including governors, including MCAs, don't mind discussing that and saying, fine, let's put people down. And all they're doing right now is not giving us theories of how I'm going to improve your lifestyle, how I'm going to improve you, and how I'm going to reduce, your problems. But they're all talking about, oh, it's this guy who's better or I'm better. And that's what's happening. And that's going along tribal lines. We've got to unite our people to say, stand together. August 9th, August 10th, we've got to go back to work. We need to create jobs. If we set a KPI, a key performance indicator, for every leader, how many jobs did you create, and therefore you can come up standing in front in line in elections. That should become our key performance indicator going forward. People want jobs, they want to work, they want a family, and they want peace. Okay. Now, when they say peace is equal to justice, we don't want peace. Some people are saying we don't want peace. We want justice. And this is coming from a lot of the people out there, and they're talking about, let's convert that peace into justice. But how can you get justice if there's no peace? Right? How can you be violent and say, I will be violent, I don't care, I want justice by hook or by crook? I think that's a wrong notion. Yes, we want justice. We are not saying no. We want justice. Justice means it cannot be relative to say, I am the only one who can win. I think justice means let's do the fair.
Okay.
At the same time, credible institutions need to be credible.
Yeah. Okay. Brief comment, because there are some questions for Rosalind here.
Yeah, sure. I think that question that you've asked is very pertinent to the politics of the day and the current situation in this country. And you have actually dealt on the issues of the American politics. And I want to say that people have to trust their systems. The reason why we have a difference between Kenya and America is because of the nature, the maturity, the democratic maturity of the two countries, where, members of the American side are able to trust the institutions that they have made for many years. Of course, compared to Kenya, we are only 50-something years. America is over 200 years, and therefore it takes time for those institutions to be able to, for the citizens to be able to trust their institutions. And also institutions, just like wine, mature with time. And that's why you can see that the American culture, even the democratic culture, is quite different to Kenyan one, in the sense that people are able to behave themselves. They have the moral obligation to actually have trust on those institutions. And at the same time, they have the culture of trusting and, being able to give independence and the freedom to those institutions to execute their mandate. Here in Kenya, we are not yet politically disciplined. in the sense that we seem to be able to be always changing the goalpost wherever the goal scorer is going to make a goal or to make a kill, and that is a bad culture, politically speaking, and therefore we need to mature to a level where perhaps we are going to say IEBC is an independent body, and that independence has to be seen in both in theory and also in practice, but not just a mere rhetoric, that we want to see a credible independent institution, yet we are not giving it that independence to execute its mandate. I think that's a problem that we are lacking as a country. But all is not lost, because of course we as a country we still have to focus and still maintain that aspect of seeing a country which is actually trying to occupy the first position in Africa, if I'm not wrong, as a champion of best practice when it comes to democratization process, and electoral matters is no exception in this issue. And therefore, Kenya being a reference point in Africa, we need to now cultivate this further to ensure that we cement the position that globally we are being looked into.
Okay. Rosalind, lots of questions here. I'll try and see if I can put them in categories. Someone here, you don't give us your name, but you're saying hi. Approximately how much time would a voter take inside a polling station? I don't know how you'll be able to figure that one out. And how long are the queues anticipated to be? Because I think 700 people.
Yeah, the queues should be shorter this time round, because you are capping it at, actually when we've checked, none of our polling stations even have 700. They all have a little bit under 700. But I need to emphasize, though, the confusion is, you have a polling station, but you have a polling center. The issues that we might have are some of the polling centers that have very many polling stations. We have, for instance, Umoja 1 Primary School in Nairobi, and we're trying to look at how we ensure that we have other spaces to allow for people to be able to queue in. And it's about 6 to 7 minutes if you have issues to
6 to 7 minutes
in terms of if there are issues. I mean, at least the timings that we have seen, that is kind of average if you include people who might have issues. It's actually, when you're looking at with the technology, it takes much shorter time than it did in 2013 to vote. So it's a very short period of time once you've been identified and you've been given your ballot.
But 6 to 7 minutes is a little bit quite a long time.
I think about put into context. I think put into context. 6 to 7 minutes for you to get your vote done. But there is flow happening. So consecutively, you've got people going through. So it takes you, let's say, half a minute to get your biometrics.
I still find it quite a long time
compared to the processes we've had in the past.
Let me say this: if you calculate one person takes 6 minutes, multiply that by 700. That's why there's more than a whole day, of course.
And that's an interesting question that is raised. Cut-off point, and are you going to, is it like during the nominations, for example, where I was in Kitui, the party nominations I attended, they had a rule that as long as you're in the gate by 6 o'clock, we're going to deal with you, but once the gates are closed, you're out.
That is exactly the point. If you are within the 400 meters perimeter of the polling station or polling center by 5 p.m., then you'll be allowed to vote.
By 5 p.m.?
Yeah, so if you come after 5 p.m., if you're not in line, if you're not inside the line by 5 p.m., then you'll not be allowed to vote. But anybody who will be there at 5 p.m. will go on. So your voting can continue on up to 6 or 6 p.m. if you have more people. As long as you are there, as long as you are in the queue, you'll be allowed to vote.
You've mentioned technology. That's another question that's coming up here. Someone is asking, the requirement to present the ID or passport by law was during registration. During voting, so long as the machine can identify me, then should I be allowed to vote? And someone else also adds, if I lose the voter's card, will I be allowed to vote using my ID card?
You do not need to have your voter's card, what we gave you, which was a slip, or the voter's card. You do not need to have it for you to vote. The law requires you to appear with your document that you registered. Until that law, we are a law-abiding institution. Until the law is changed, we can't say you cannot come with it, but it is not what will be used to identify you from our system. It's your fingerprints.
Okay. And in fact, Waiga, I've calculated that the time, what do we have? The hours that a polling station with 700, potential voters will take 70 hours. 70 hours actually it resonates to 5 days.
5 days.
5 days.
No, what I meant is
And
from the
5
time,
nights.
if you come to the line, what I'm talking about is the flow.
Flow.
That by the time you come, if you are in line, because you're not going to
you
come
should be
and
in and
yeah,
out.
so if
In
you're
and
talking,
out.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the time that is going to take you from when you have been identified to vote to putting, you know, to marking your ballot papers. That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm just talking about that if you are to calculate your time, you have a date with somebody and you want to know what time you need to be ready for your date. At least give yourself 6 to 7 minutes to finalize so that you can make it on time for your date. That's what I meant.
And on the same note, you have contingency plans for far-flung areas, areas that have had a bit of volatility.
Yes.
In previous elections, we've seen ballot papers arriving there at lunchtime in some areas because of the distance. How have you factored in?
We've made available, you know, Kenya Postal Services is providing our logistics for the entire, for most of the operations, especially those from Nairobi to the constituencies. And in those far-flung areas, we are going to be using helicopters, planes to be able to deliver the ballot papers. And in places actually where we have security incidents, we're going to have to use that. There are parts of this country, for instance, that the roads are mined, and for those purposes, we're going to have to use helicopters to deliver the ballot papers there.
Okay. Final question before, and I'll also give Vimal and Brian a chance to wind up. There are Kenyans asking here about they've tried to transfer from one polling center or station to another, and they are facing challenges with that. Are there any challenges in regards to that? And let me see if I can get an exact one here. Let me see here. There's one I saw that has now disappeared. It's unfortunate that when you need it.
But I can respond to the broader question.
Yes.
First of all, right now, there are no changes we can make to the polling stations.
Okay.
Our kits are locked. The register has been certified. We did not want to repeat the mistakes of 2013 where the Supreme Court asked which register did you use, and it wasn't clear. We have only one register. The same printed register is the same one that is going to be in the kits. So it's only one register. We cannot make any changes to any polling stations right now. You will have to check wherever you are shown to be in at this point is a place you're going to have to vote. Unfortunately, there are no changes we can make to the register at this point to ensure that we maintain the credibility of the register and to avoid any questioning on which register did you use for the election.
Okay, thank you, Roslyn, for coming in to just help put some of those fears to rest. Vimal, I can give you 1 minute just to tell us, doesn't Kenya Daima have any activities between now and August 8th that people can look forward to?
I think there's a lot that's going to happen, and there's a lot more of education. And what we wanted to know is, are all the institutions ready? Now our messaging is going to go out even more stronger.
Okay.
We're also going to have concerts where people can actually disseminate this information and really tell people that, look, even after August 8th, we still have to live in our country. We have to be together. The issues around IEBC, and I think the issues around exceptions, where you say, look, there's an 80-20 rule or a 90-10 rule. 10% exceptions have to be put on the side, and 90% will go through very easily. But what we normally do is we make that 10% such a big issue, and we try and change the entire rule, and we don't realize there's a lot of good things happening. That's important for us. And I think the issue is education of people to say, hey guys, at the end of the day, we are one Kenya. And it's not about my tribe or this tribe or that, or wherever I represent a governor or a MCA or whatever. It's about Kenya being together. The issue and the main thing is ni wajibu wetu. Kenyans, if all Kenyans put together today would say wajibu wetu is our responsibility to make sure we will not resort to violence, that will be important. The court system is saying we are ready so that any cases coming through, even if they're plentiful, we are ready for that. What we're saying is, if you win, you're probably not going to complain. If you lose, you're going to complain, and there'll be petitions. But go to court. Do not pick up violence and do not be incited by anybody else. If our people start saying we are going to be responsible, then our leaders will change their language too.
Okay. 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Wahiga. I think he has alluded to such an important component when it comes to our country. And I want to say that the world all eyes are on us as a country, and this country is actually attracting a lot of attention globally. And we, being the center of focus globally, I think is the high time that we need to prove to the world that we have matured to a level where perhaps we can actually manage our affairs, and we are able to gel together even after after the elections. You know, gone are the days when perhaps you would want to see a situation where the country, you know, is taking the wrong direction. People have matured, and if you listen to the people on the streets or out there in the villages, they are ready to see a country which still sticks together and sticks together after elections, and they are ready to see the leaders, I mean the political players here, working to amicable solution, to finding solution to the problems that we have as a country. While there might be some contentious issues through, you know, electoral matters, I think Kenyans are ready to see dialogue being, taken or appreciated, taking center stage in terms of actually ensuring that all people, as much as we have the sunny interest, but we have an interest to keep this country together. I think we need to preserve this for generations to come.
Okay, thank you, Brian, for that. Now, just let me read two quick messages before I wind up. We've got another interview coming up shortly. Interestingly, some of the messages are from pastors. Pastor Ngoya says, hi, I'm Pastor Ngoya from Nakuru. My comment, IEBC should be as neutral as possible. Make sure you check register of voters. Look at when you choose the printer, which is a process that's, of course, going on for the presidential ballot papers. Avoid fear of the current government, etc., and we shall have peaceful elections. Okay. Another pastor again. I don't know, what's happening here. Pastor Anthony Joy says, I have a comment on peace and justice. I think if I stole your item and you got me with it, for peace to prevail, I should be just by giving you back what belongs to you.
Absolutely.
Therefore, when justice is executed, then peace will be inevitable. And Vimal, someone else is saying, may I ask the panel this question? We don't have time to get into it now. Between peace and justice, what comes first? Literally, 30 seconds?
Yeah, I think we've got one thing, and that's important for Kenyans to know. The president, the governors, the current government, the senators, the parliamentarians, including the leader of opposition, have signed a peace pledge that says we will abide by peace, we will make sure there's no incitement, there's nothing going wrong. So if they can all sit together, yesterday's Standard, you could see pictures of all of them coming together. My point would be this: if they can sit together and talk and say we want a peace pledge, why are Kenyans not talking about peace? I would suggest that every one of us, every one of you, stand together and say, I will not be incited by any violence. I will ask them to go to court.
Okay, thank you, Vimal. I think that's how we wrap up this session for today, Election Preparedness. Thank you for all my guests. Vimal Shah, Chairman, and Kenya Daima, Brian Mutie, Governance Expert, and Rosie Nakombe, Commissioner from the IEBC. Thank you for making time bright and early to be here on the Power Breakfast Show. Well, that brings this session to an end. But after this, Joy Muthengi will be talking about, is it eyebrow tattoos or, my goodness. Okay, looking forward to watch that interview coming up after this. You're watching the Power Breakfast Show live on Citizen TV.